Hello, I am Adam Hill. I am the Rav of the Potters Bar and Brookmans Park United Synagogue, as well as one of the team of Shomrim with KLBD, the kashrut division of the London Bet Din. There are three main teams in KLBD. There are the coordinators, the food technologists, the decision makers, the Rabbanim and Dayanim in the office, who are the central core. And then there is the team that go across this country and indeed across the world, checking the kashrut standards of food which is made within factories, as well as those of us who work with caterers, care homes, schools, restaurants, shops, and bakeries. And a quick hats tip to all of those who are working so hard in the present circumstances to make sure that there is kasher food available for you, our community. Also, the United Synagogue, the Chief Rabbi, the Dayanim, my colleagues, the Community Rabbanim, the Living and Learning Department are working so hard to make sure that there is available information for you, our community. There are many parts of what I'm going to be saying which are KLBD guidelines, and there are other parts which are from me as a community Rav. For each of you with a community of your own, you should be sure to ask your own community Rav for guidance, as there can be differences in local customs and practice. And we should always work with Flora, our friendly, local, Orthodox rabbinic authority, who will be able to answer our particular circumstances and situations. And this should never be seen as bothering the rabbi. Helping others to find the correct halachic path for them is what we are there for. So then our question is now, what is chametz? And chametz is where you have one of the 5 types of grain, or a mixture of them, which is wheat, barley, spelt, oats, or rye. But not only these are potential chametz, and then if you add time and you add water, this then will make the grain leaven and become chametz. You can have things which will make this situation quicker, such as suor, which is a leavening agent, such as yeast, which will make a grain ferment quicker. And also you have temperature. On Pesach, both chametz and suor are forbidden. So if we take, for example, Pesach matzah. Pesach matzah is made with wheat, which from the time of its harvest is guarded to make sure that it's kept dry. And then when it's taken to the mill to be turned into flour, it's guarded to make sure that it's kept dry. And when it's taken to the factory to be turned into matzah, so we then have the stopwatch which is ticking to make sure that from the time that the water is added until the time that it will come out of the oven, 18 minutes will not have passed, because 18 minutes is seen as the time that our grain will become chametz. The water that we use is actually mayim shalanu, water which has rested overnight so that the temperature will have reduced, again, to make sure that the chametzing process will be inhibited. The production line, whether it's handmade matzah or whether it's machine-made matzah, is always being cleaned down, and within 18 minutes it will be completely clean to make sure there is no crumbs, there is no leftover dough, which will go from one batch to the next. Year-round matzah, however, is basically a cracker which is made with flour and it's made with water, and the process just continues on without needing to check about the 18-minute process. It doesn't have the Pesach stringencies applied. And that's why it's chametz matzah. That's the difference between the red pack of kasher Pesach Rakuzens matzah and the blue pack, which is year-round, not for Passover use. Another aspect of chametz is that it has to be edible. And there's a question as to, are we talking about edible for a person, or are we talking edible for an animal? We have some heroes, some superheroes when it comes to Pesach. And that are Ajax and Astonish and Flash and Mr. Muscle and Sif. These are cleaning agents which are harsh. They've got bleaches in them, they've got cleaning agents in them. This is beyond just what might be a desanitizer, such as a Dettol or something such as that, which have no taste. These wonderful things, when it comes to Pesach, will make any food taste disgusting. And if it tastes disgusting, it then cannot be considered to be chametz. So, Baruch Hashem, we have these things. This, not only should we not eat chametz during Pesach, but we should also not own it. We have bal yera'u bal yimatzeh, that chametz should not be seen or found in our possession. We learn this from when we have the Paschal lamb brought, which shouldn't have chametz near it. And so from the beginning of the 6th hour on the eve of Pesach through until the end of Chag, we make sure that we are a chametz-free zone. Just as when we talk about Yom Kippur and we say, what is eating? And eating has to have a certain amount to be considered eating. And if you have less than that amount, then you're considered not to have broken your fast. If, for instance, you need to take a medicine, or as a diabetic, you need to make sure that you have a regular intake of sugar. So how much chametz is it that is prohibited to own during Pesach? And standardly, that would be the size of a kazayit, a queen olive. The question then comes as to the crumbs, as to whether they would be considered as well. But to make sure that we don't have chametz, we then have to go through a process of cleaning our property. As well as that, we make sure not to own chametz by selling chametz, mechirat chametz, where the possession becomes somebody else's who does not have the prohibitions of Pesach during that period of time. We have bitul chametz, where we negate any chametz which might be in our possession. We say this when we do the search for chametz. Kol chamira v'chamia, any chametz which might be in my possession may be considered as null and void as the dust of the earth. These crumbs, however, really aren't considered to be anything of substance, and so crumbs which are at the bottom of the hoover really don't need to be destroyed. However, normally we will try to get rid of them and take them off our property. This year, however, of course, we are in more pressing times. So our concern about chametz is going to depend on our particular circumstance. If you have a chametz spreading machine, also known as a toddler, then you're going to find chametz in all different sorts of places. You're going to find that the cookie has been taken and it's been left next to the toy box, or you'll find it in the bottom of the toy. When you have toddlers, you need to be searching all over the place because chametz might be anywhere. If you have food fights, then yes, you will have to take down your curtains and your chandeliers. But for most of us who don't have food fights, that would be spring cleaning. That's not to do with cleaning for Pesach, because you wouldn't expect chametz to be on your curtains or in your light fittings. Deciding where in your house you're likely to have any chametz then is the important thing for this year and really any other year. Your kitchen will have chametz. Your living room area where you will sit down with a cup of tea and a piece of cake, that will have chametz. Perhaps you would have that in bed as well. There might be chametz there. Where you have your main meals, there will be chametz there. So those areas do need to be cleaned. But of course, in previous times where there were dirt floors, it would be difficult to make sure you swept up completely and made sure everything was gotten rid of. Today we have hard floors and we have carpets and we have mops and we have hoovers and other sorts of vacuum cleaners. And so we can make sure that our houses are chametz free by giving it a very decent clean. And we take our superheroes, Mr. Muscle, and make sure that we spray in the various places, and so anything which might have been overlooked has become non-chametz, because we've made it taste disgusting. And so therefore, it is no longer chametz. We have a mitzvah of Simchat Yom Tov. Simchat Yom Tov, enjoying the festival. And if we go into Pesach feeling like a wrung out wash rag, we're not going to have a proper Simchat Yom Tov. And so therefore, we need to make sure we distinguish between what are we doing because we want to spring clean and what are we doing because we need to make sure that our houses are chametz free. So in our living rooms and our dining rooms and our bedrooms, places where we might have taken the chametz, we do need to vacuum up, we do need to sweep up, we need to make sure that we take a rag which has got cleaning agents in it and clean the tables and make sure that that area now is clean. Mishnah talks about, well, should you reckon that a mouse will have taken chametz from one house to another and from one town to another even? It says we have to consider the practical outcome. Where is chametz likely to be? The main place, of course, we're going to have to be concerned about is the kitchen. And other areas of the house will just need that little clean. So in the kitchen, let's talk about that now. You should have designated cutlery, crockery, and kitchen utensils for Pesach. And this year we have a difference in that many people who go away each year are having to make their own Pesach at home. And so obviously there are various questions coming up this year that we wouldn't have at another time. As an aside, I think next year we're going to have even more questions than this year, because this year we have some difficulties around us. Next year we have Seder night being on Motzei Shabbat, and what do you do when you have Pesach starting with the Erev Pesach being Shabbat, and we haven't had that for 13 years, and we're not going to have that for 4 years time in 2025, and then we won't have it for 20 years until 2045 and then 2048. Back to now. It's easier if you can to get new kelim, to get new utensils for Pesach. If you can't get new, then perhaps it's best to try to use disposables. Kashering is an involved process, and if there is a way that you can get by with not having to kasher, so much the better. Another challenge that we're going to have this year is normally when you have a new keli, a new vessel, then if it's made out of glass or out of metal, our custom is also for earthenware, we should be doing tevilat kelim. We take it and we immerse it into a mikvah. A naturally gathered body of water. There's normally a gully then which leads from that to tap water, which is where we will actually immerse our vessels. This year we're not going to be able to get to those because we shouldn't be going out, and most of them are closed at present anyway. And so the recommendation is, if you've got your new kelim, that you should lift them up and say that they are hefker. You consider them to be ownerless, and so therefore the necessity of toveling them, of dipping them in the mikvah, does not apply. After all of this is over and we've got free movement again and we can get back to the mikvah, then we should be makaneh, we should acquire them again, and we should dip them, and please God, you should be able to get involved with that very soon. If you're unable to obtain new saucepans and other utensils or disposable utensils, you need to kasher your chametz utensils, then these are the following guidelines which I would recommend. Metal items that will be kasher should be one piece of metal without plastic handles, the like. Make sure that you have cleaned them thoroughly and that they are left unused for 24 hours. Couple of different methods which we would suggest. Number one, if you take a pot, which is one piece metal, your normal chametz pot, and you fill it with water, and in that water you will also put some washing up liquid. You then take a pair of tongs or the like, and once this is on your stove and boiling away nicely, you take your one-piece item in your tongs and you dip it in, take it out, dip it in so that the other part gets done, and then you have your fully kashered implement, leave it there to dry. This also can be done for something such as your kiddush cup, making sure, of course, to keep yourself safe. Goes into our boiling water and comes out. That is method number one of hagalah. Another method which could be done is as follows. Instead of dipping it into the pot of water, then take a kettle which has been boiled up and pour boiling water over all of the keli, all of the vessel, and this irui, this pouring from of boiling water over, is seen as the way of being able to kasher something which is not ben yumor, something which is after 24 hours of having been used. So just to go through that again, take a chametz metal pot which is clean and hasn't been used for 24 hours. Fill it with water, putting a little bit of washing up liquid into the water and boil up the water till it's bubbling. Then, using tongs or the like, insert the items to be kashered one at a time, making sure that the water is bubbling. You don't need to insert it all in one go, as long as the whole item is immersed, and then put it under cold water to cool it without touching the sink, unless the sink's already kasher for Pesach, and then place the now kosher for Pesach item on a clean towel on your kitchen side. If you wish to kasher this pot so you can use it for Pesach, make sure that the water is boiling and then gently boils over the top and spills down the sides of the pot, and afterwards pour boiling water from a kettle onto the pot handles. Now, if the pot has a metal lid, kasher it by pouring the boiling water on it from a kettle. If it's got a Pyrex lid, then cover it up with silver foiling and covering a silver foil covering on Pesach instead, since the Pyrex lid is complex to kasher. So better put the Pyrex lid aside and just cover the pot with the foil instead. Method 2 is irui, is to use the kettle instead, the kettle that you can that you use year round, on the assumption that it is a chametz-free kettle and you haven't boiled up your pot noodles in it. We suggest that you clean and you descale the kettle before kashering. If you wish to use the kettle for Pesach, then you follow the same guidelines, and from a different source, you have to pour over that. Now, oven trays cannot be kashered for Pesach. You do need to get separate or new ones, or disposable for doing the chag. Frying pans are difficult to kasher. To do so properly needs inspecting and bleaching and heating the pan to such a rigorous extent that it makes it really impractical and possibly dangerous without having the correct equipment. And so I wouldn't recommend doing this. In ideal circumstances, plastic should not be kashered for Pesach. In extremis, in this situation of hadchak that we have at present, where ideal circumstances aren't possible, and this happens in IDF kitchens as well, then if you have hard plastics which aren't going to break, they can be kashered following either of those two methods above, as long as they are clean and unused for 24 hours prior to kashering, such as a jug such as this, or a bowl such as this, as long as there aren't gashes and there aren't problems with being able to make sure that they are fully clean, then you're able either to do hagala, dipping them into a pot of boiling water, or irui, pouring water which is just boiling from the kettle. Earthenware and ceramics and Pyrex can't be kashered for Pesach, which means that chametz plates cannot be kashered for Pesach. Our superheroes are now going to come to the fore again. Cleaning our fridge, it just needs to be cleaned. And so if we take our cleaning agent, we spray around and we wipe it through, making sure we have a thoroughly clean fridge, checking on manufacturers' guidelines, of course, making sure that we're not going to do anything to damage it. So we then have a kasher for Pesach fridge. Our custom is still to cover the fridge's shelves, and making sure that you put some holes in in those covers for ventilation and airflow within within. Remember, always check the manufacturer's advice. Koshering should make something suitable for use and not ruin it. And always consider your safety, and do not attempt anything that would cause damage or harm to you or those around you. The freezer has to be cleaned out thoroughly, following again your manufacturer's instructions. Defrost it so that you can get rid of any crumbs which are left. Take your spray, take your cloth, and then it is going to be ready for use once you have put some shelf lining in. Food shelves, again, take everything out, take your cleaner, spritz it all over, wipe it through with the cloth. Again, our custom is to line these shelves where possible. And again, with my spray over here, if you have got brown paper around, if you've got foil around, if you've got banqueting roll around, or if you've got, especially if you get busy with your Purim presents, you've got film, florist cellophane around. These are fantastic to be able to use in order to cover your shelves and make sure there is a separation between your Pesach items and where the Chametz items would normally be. Cupboards which contain chametz, which you will have sold, should be labelled and sealed so that you won't inadvertently use them. And we don't want to, we might say, we don't want to find, we don't want to see our chametz, any chametz during Pesach. So it should be with in a sealed cupboard. Stainless steel sinks. You clean it completely. You take out the sink filter, if there's a detachable one, and don't use anything hot in it for 24 hours. You pour bleach down the plug hole and clean around where the plug hole is properly. Pour boiling water straight from a kettle. If you've got a hot rod or a stone which is for kashering, it is good to use this to make sure you keep the temperature up. You clean over the taps and all over the sink, starting from the top. Year-round strainers and the plastic and rubber plugs shouldn't be used on Pesach. Even if you perform the above-mentioned procedure for your sinks, it's best then also to get washing up bowls for Pesach. Even if you have separate meat and milk sinks, this is always good as an extra precaution. If you only have one sink, you'll need separate milk and meat washing up bowls for Pesach in any event. You need to make sure that you have new washing up gear for Pesach, so new sponges, gloves, washing up liquid, so that there hasn't got any of the chametz which might have been from your year-round washing. If you have enamel or porcelain sinks, these generally are considered not to be able to be kashrut for Pesach. So you clean them, you bleach down the plug hole and the drain. Often it's best to cover them with either the plastic or with foil, but still then you are definitely going to have to use washing up bowls as we said just before. When it comes to the countertops within the kitchen, they again should be fully cleaned and covered, ideally a durable material such as the foil or such as the florist's cellophane that I mentioned. Alternatively, use clean towels or tablecloths to cover the tops. And you can change those during Chol HaMoed, and you can, if necessary, wash them through the washing machine for that immediate use. When you put hot items down, make sure that you have a Pesach trivet or placemat to be able to do that, or take some silver foil for the place where that will be, to avoid damage to your countertop. For granite countertops, they should be thoroughly cleaned. Good practice is to cover them or kasher them with boiling water, but it's not strictly necessary to do so if they're genuinely made of top quality non-absorbent granite. Otherwise, cover as with non-granite countertops. And this really is a custom anyway, to just to make sure that there is a separation between our Pesach and our year-round materials. When it comes to ovens, there are so many different sorts of ovens which are around now. If it is a non-self-cleaning oven, a standard oven, clean thoroughly with an oven cleaner, including the racks. Spray the cleaner into the fan area, making sure that you follow manufacturer's instructions. And once the oven is clean and you've rinsed out any of the chemical residue, then you turn it on to its highest temperature. And once the oven has reached that highest temperature, you leave it on for an hour. It's recommended to cover items you cook during Pesach with silver foil. If you have a self-cleaning oven, the sort which you're able to turn on, it goes to an incredibly high heat, clean around the crevices of the door where there is the glass as well. Put it onto its cleaning cycle, and once it's not been used for 24 hours, it will then be considered to be clean. Replace the racks and put the oven through that complete cleaning cycle. When it comes to microwaves, I personally prefer not to have a microwave used at Pesach because it is so difficult to make sure that it is cleaned. However, according to guidelines from the Beit Din, then they can be kashrut for Pesach. The procedure will be, again, checking your manufacturer's guidelines, that clean the microwave thoroughly. Get either a Pesach microwave plate or take your standard plate once it's clean and cover it over with cling film. Having cleaned the microwave thoroughly using one of our cleaners before, put a chametz glass, which is clean and unused for 24 hours, of boiling water into the microwave for 6 minutes. Once the time is up, remove the glass and the chametz plate, and now your microwave is ready for Pesach. Otherwise, if you cannot follow the above procedure, use your Pesach plate or double-wrapped regular microwave plates and double-wrap anything that you will put into the microwave. Always avoid putting the double wrap on Pesach surfaces. Fabrics don't need to be kashrut for Pesach. They need to go through the washing machine to make sure they are thoroughly clean. Again, no chametz, or if the chametz has had detergent poured all over it, as will happen in the washing machine, it no longer is chametz. The kettle, wipe down your kettle so it's clean. Descale it so it's as clean as possible inside and leave it for 24 hours. Boil water in the kettle to the maximum amount allowed. Pour that water out, not into the kitchen sink if it's ready for Pesach, or in the 24 hours before making it ready for Pesach. A Shabbat urn can be kashrut in a similar way, whether it's made out of plastic or out of metal. Once the Shabbat urn has reached boiling point, let it boil and release steam for some minutes before emptying it. An electric hob. You clean thoroughly and then turn it up to its highest setting. Once the high setting is reached, leave the hob on for 15 minutes. It is good practice to avoid putting Pesach saucepans on the areas between the heating circles. Again, follow manufacturer's instructions. With a gas hob, again, clean thoroughly, both the racks and the rest of the hob area. It's best if you can kasher the racks with the pot supports with a blowtorch or by passing them through the gas flame until it's been entirely burnt within the flame. Alternatively, clean the hob and the racks thoroughly, turn the gas on to full and leave it on for 15 minutes. Cover then the pan supports with silver foil and replacing them during Pesach as necessary. Or you could buy a cooking ring specially for Pesach, which is useful for Yom Tov itself, because that can then just be put onto a time switch and go on and off as is needed. If you don't use your hob on Pesach, make sure that you cover it properly so nothing is inadvertently put on it during Pesach, even when the hob is off. A dishwasher with a stainless steel interior, once it's cleaned properly, including the filter being emptied out, it can be kashrut with its usual racks as long as the racks are undamaged. The procedure for kashering the dishwasher is as follows. Leave it in its clean position unused for 24 hours. Clean it with detergent, especially the filter and the rubber seals around the doors, and then run a cleaning cycle using one of the cleaning bottles for dishwashers. And it's now then ready for use. Only stainless steel dishwashers can be kashrut, whether it's Pesach or whether it is year-round. Again, check with your flora, check with your own Rav as to his view. With hot plates, clean them thoroughly, turn on until the highest temperature is reached, and then leave on for an hour. Once it's then cooled down, cover it with silver foil as long as your manufacturer's instructions allow for this to be done. Some manufacturers don't view covering the whole of the hot plate as something safe. If your hot plate manufacturer is of this view, then just cover the area of the hot plate in which you will put an item with one piece of silver foil for that area. Glass is not recommended to be kashrut for Pesach. In extremis, so perhaps in the situations we are in present, first recommendation is get a delivery of glasses if at all possible. It's something which your supermarkets normally will stock. If not, then if we're talking about just plain glass, not Pyrex, make sure it's clean, hasn't been used for 24 hours. Fill a large clean container with cold water and you soak the glasses in the water for 72 hours in total, but you change the water every 24 hours. And we don't do this if the glasses have been used for something harif, something sharp, such as whiskey or similar alcoholic drinks. Have a new toothbrush for Pesach and check in the Pesach product pages on the KLBD website to see which mouthwashes, flosses, and toothpastes are kasher for Pesach. Again, if I was to show you here, we have on the KLBD website at kosher.org UK a whole section of what is kasher LePesach, and you are also able to go to the app, which at present is hiding. Is it kosher for Passover, in order to see which products are going to be suitable. Sorry for the clunkiness of the presentation. It's again part and parcel of the situation that we find ourselves in. If your doctor has prescribed pills which contain chametz to be taken during Pesach, please speak to your doctor and speak to your rabbi for advice. Call the US coronavirus hotline. Don't change medication without speaking to your doctor first. When it comes to Yom Tov, again, we're meant to have simchat Yom Tov. We're meant to have enjoyment of the Chag. So make sure to do your preparations as much as in advance as possible so you can go into Yom Tov being relaxed. My community, we're having a Zoom get-together, a cup of tea and a Pesach biscuit, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because for half an hour, I would like us to take off the time, just spend a bit of time saying hello to each other, wishing each other a good Yom Tov, and then we'll carry on for the final preparations before Seder. Again, make sure that your table is laid, make sure that you're wearing your Yom Tov clothes, phone through on Zoom, on Facebook, or WhatsApp or the like, before Yom Tov, to speak with family, to share times, to share jokes, to share your anecdotes, and then when it comes to Yom Tov itself, then turn off your appliances and have a time of Pesach which is enjoyable, which is relaxed, even though it is very unusual circumstances that we are in this year. Malacha on Pesach, when it comes to work on Pesach, you can heat up food, be it liquid or solid, as long as the heating implement is already on or controlled by a timer. Borer, the separating between that which you want to have and that which you don't want to have, is permitted on Yom Tov, but not on Shabbat. There are various laws which are so different from Shabbat, which we are allowed on Yom Tov, which are because of Ochel Nefesh, making sure that we have the things that we need for the enjoyment of Yom Tov. It takes some preparation. I make sure on Wednesday before Yom Tov to make Eruv Tavshilin, which allows us to prepare on Yom Tov for Shabbat as well. I wish everyone a Chag Kasher B'Sameach, that you should have a festival which is fully kasher, where we're involving ourselves with Pesach for our generation, for the next generation, so that we've got stories to be able to pass down, to say how important Pesach is for us, and we kept it even though there were inconveniences for us in this particular year. make sure it's sameach as well. Make sure that you take time to have simchat Yom Tov, to have the enjoyment of Yom Tov. Make sure that you have time where you will relax and realize that, please God, we are living at the time of the month of Geula, the month of redemption. Please God, we will have a time when we will all gather together and be able to celebrate very soon. Chag Hasher v'Sameach. Please take care.